Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our Facebook chat today. We do apologize that we're not live this morning as a result of some technical difficulties. We will continue to host these sessions every Friday at 10 a.m. for the month of May to discuss some of the common themes caregivers are experiencing through this pandemic. Today, we are planning to spend about 20 to 30 minutes on the topic of repetitive behaviors, and we invite you to ask questions in the comments section of this video, and we'll respond to each post. My name is Miranda, and I am one of the registered social workers on the Society support team.
Hi everyone, I'm Cindy Bond. I do community education with the Alzheimer's Society of Calgary. Welcome this morning, and we apologize for the technical difficulties. Our colleague who's very tech savvy, something was wrong, so it wasn't just Miranda and I, which is
yes. Well, let's jump right in. I know repetitive questioning was one of the topics that I was really looking forward to doing this Facebook chat about, because it's something that I'm hearing in almost every call from caregivers, particularly during this pandemic.
Yeah.
So really, one of the most common things that I'm hearing is the questions around wanting to go out and maybe not understanding or remembering that due to the virus, we can't at this time.
Yeah, so that repetitive, I want to go, I want to go, I want to go, whether it's to the mall or just out, right, and not realizing the safety protocols around that. Not much more of an issue, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Miranda, with the caregivers that you've spoken with, and the concern is repetitive question, is there some things that you would suggest caregivers consider, or some themes around that repetitive questioning or repetitive behavior?
Yeah, so when we're looking at any behavior, I think it's very important that we consider any possible medical concerns that could be contributing first. Because really, if there's an underlying medical concern, any strategy that you use is not going to have a high success rate, right? So those would be things like if your person is in pain, maybe they're repeating the same word over and over again because they are not able to communicate that pain in another way. Right? Or discomfort, infection, medication changes. UTIs would be a really big one that I'm hearing about that are contributing to this.
Yeah. So, yeah, I would agree. Like UTI causing delirium, or that infection for sure. I had a person one time who his behavior was repetitive in that it wasn't verbally repetitive, but his behavior was repetitive in that he was pacing and wringing his hands and making verbalizations like moans, like that kind of thing. And after a lot of strategies, trying different things, it was found out by the doctor that he was constipated.
Okay.
So, right. And the behavior stopped once those symptoms were relieved. So that was something I learned. I hadn't considered that before. But yeah.
Well, the person living with dementia is so much more than just a person living with dementia. They still have a whole body that they need to take care of, and where other medical challenges can happen, right? So it's really knowing your person. What type of dementia do they have? Do they have any underlying medical concerns that that we need to pay attention to and consider really may be contributing to a certain behavior?
Right. And their ability to communicate that they're in pain or where that pain is coming from because of the disease can sometimes be difficult for them to communicate to us. Do you have pain? No.
Yeah.
but you see that they're rubbing their knee, or, you know, different behaviors to look for that might indicate pain is important as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
What
Yeah.
about anxiety? What would you say about that?
About anxiety, well, that creeps up in a lot of different situations, right? Some people naturally are a little bit more anxious than others or have an anxiety disorder, but dementia can also cause people living with dementia to be anxious when maybe they weren't before, right? And so a good example would really be, maybe you've told your person that they have an appointment next week with their doctor, and the person keeps asking, when's my appointment? Or every morning they're up really early getting dressed and waiting at the front door. And that can be a sign of anxiousness, right? Where the person, because maybe they're somewhat aware that they're not sure what day or the appointment's really important to them, they're going to keep asking questions about it.
So, yeah, those are great examples, because I'm thinking too, I have gone on vacation, I've left the house to go for work. It has happened more times than I'd like to admit, where I just have this gnawing feeling that I forgot something. I think that sometimes, or I wonder if that's what it kind of feels like, where you get stuck because it's annoying. You think you forgot something, and that feeling won't leave you.
Yeah,
Figure out what it is. Yeah.
Well, and that speaks to the emotion behind the behavior, right? Every behavior, whether it's repetitive questioning or, you know, something else, it's always telling you a message, whether it's an emotion that the person's feeling or an unmet need. So that's another really important thing to consider when you're trying to figure out, why is my person asking questions repetitively or having other repetitive behaviors. Yeah.
Yes, that emotions are so important at this juncture, right? And when someone's diagnosed with dementia, emotions are so important. So I think, yeah, talking about anxiety, just going back to that for a second. So looking at the environment as well, is it overstimulating or understimulating?
Yes.
Repetitive behavior as well, kind of that pent-up anxiety, restlessness.
Yep. Yeah.
Or overstimulation, where you know, the senses are just being bombarded with stimuli, and a person with dementia sometimes can have difficulty figuring out what is going on. Like, wow, it's like walking through the mall at Christmas time with the music and the lights and all the people, and just, yeah, I always think
they may not be able to vocalize that, right? Or even recognize it within themselves that, you know, the TV and the fan on is making things a little bit difficult for them.
Yeah, so true. It doesn't have to be a lot of stimulation from our perspective. It's their perspective that matters, right? Yeah, just fan. I like that example. Yeah, that could be very annoying for someone.
Absolutely, yeah. It could be. Yeah. So what else do you think would be something that we need to consider when we're trying to figure out why a repetitive behavior is happening?
A few things come to mind, but staying with the emotion, it's not only the emotion of the person with dementia, but it's the emotion of the caregiver as well. And it seems, since we've gone into self-isolating, I've talked about this an awful lot, is that emotional contagion, where people with dementia, their ability to mimic the emotions of others is so powerful. We all intuitively have a little bit of that ability to figure out, you know, Miranda, I know you well enough to say what's wrong, you know, when you don't tell me what's wrong, because I know you enough. But But somebody with dementia is even better with that because emotions, again, are so important to them. So I think caregivers sometimes getting frustrated is so so understandable.
Yeah.
Frustrated, absolutely, and getting tired and exhausted. But that emotional contagion, how we're feeling, really, they respond to that. Again, not articulating, but because we're in a bad mood, automatically they become in a bad mood. That can happen, right? So
Absolutely. Yeah.
consider. So that being
Those feelings tend to,
yeah.
yeah, the feelings tend to just escalate, right, between a caregiver and their person.
Yeah.
And it can start by something seemingly small, like asking a question too many times. Right?
Yeah.
So one of the strategies that I like to talk to caregivers about when they tell me their person is having repetitive behaviors is giving short, clear answers, right? Oftentimes, I think it's a really natural response to try to explain to somebody the ins and outs of why they can't do something or go somewhere, right? A really good example related to COVID would be the person wanting to go, let's say, to their summer home in Phoenix, right? And oftentimes the caregiver will talk to me and say, well, I've explained to them that, there's a virus and we're at a higher risk because we're older and, X, Y, and Z. And they provide all of this information,
Yeah.
which would be really understandable to you or I. But for someone who's living with a cognitive decline, that's a lot of information, right? And although they may understand it at that moment, because of that short-term memory loss, oftentimes it's not something that they're going to be able to retain. So that being said, my suggestion is often that not only is that a lot for the person living with dementia, it's a lot to repeat for the caregiver. Oh, yeah. So if there's a short message, if there's a short message that will satisfy your person, I would suggest giving that. So, well, the borders are closed right now. I'm looking forward to spending some time in Phoenix with you in the summer. That's a lot easier to repeat than a 10-minute explanation, right? And will hopefully contribute to less frustration.
Yeah. Good example. Yeah, that's a great example. So another caregiver, I understand they were saying that their person wants to go shopping. I want to go shopping. And if I had dementia, I'd be saying that I want to go shopping because I miss shopping. My husband's that isn't happening. But anyway, and just, keeping that very simple. The stores are closed because of the virus. But let's look online for something that you'd like to order. If that's doable. Or I know you want to get out, let's go for a walk in the park this afternoon. So again, what is the emotion, right, behind that? I just want to go. I'm tired of looking at these four walls, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and going off what you're saying there, redirection is a really great strategy, right? If we can get them focused onto something else that will keep them engaged and entertained, we might see that repetitive behavior maybe is a little fewer and farther between.
Yeah.
But I think another really important point would be that we must validate that person's feelings first, right? If they don't feel heard, it's going to be really hard to redirect them to another activity.
Yeah.
So I also spoke to a caregiver whose person really wanted to go shopping. That's what they love doing. And the caregiver they can't go to the dollar shop in the grocery store every day, right? That's not what they want to be spending their time doing. And that's completely valid. So my suggestion was, what about a calendar? Would a calendar work where you can say, you know what, I really would like to go shopping too. I need to go to the store, but let's go tomorrow. I think it'll be less busy tomorrow. And putting that on the calendar can be a really great way to validate that person's wants and needs, right? Because they see it written down that, okay, she's not dismissing me or he's not dismissing me, we're going to go at a later date. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Validation is so important. We all want to feel like we've been heard, right? And validating those feelings is so important. If you just dismiss me and say, no, we can't go, the store is closed or the border's closed. Yeah, I'm not going to feel good about that. Right. So, yeah, validation. But I think caregivers, I think this is tough, especially if it's happening a lot, those repetitive questions or repetitive behaviors. So make sure that you're taking a break for yourself. Hey, Miranda, find something that, validate, distract, find something that you both enjoy, or do something on your own if you can. Go to another part of the house and just take a break, breathe. Know that, don't beat yourself up, because that is tough when you're being inundated all the time or having to occupy someone else's time when you're already tired is exhausting. So definitely.
Yeah.
Talked about activities last week, which really goes hand in hand with this as well, right? It's a tool that caregivers can use for sure. I like you mentioned already, using memory aids to orientate and cue a person's memory. So things like whiteboards from the dollar store, just writing things down or checking off a calendar. Today is Friday, and at the end of the day, you mark that off. So the next day, and you do that together as a memory cue. I really like the idea too of a memory box. So like kind of putting a box near the person's favorite place that they sit, where if that's in the kitchen or the living room or wherever they tend to sit, just kind of putting things that can occupy them, or that calendar, if that's where you want to put the calendar, things like that. Just or a day timer, even getting the person a day timer and paperclip at the end of every day. There's so many ideas out there, but
I know another really great tool that some people can use, if it's within your means, is a dementia clock, right? That has the date, the time, the time of day, so it'll say morning or afternoon or evening. That can be really helpful as well, just in keeping track of what day it is. Probably for all of us during this pandemic, not knowing what day it is.
Right? Yeah, like I'm having that issue as well, right? Oh, it's only Thursday. Right, yeah. Those memory clocks, I understand you can get at the Alzheimer's store, and there's an outlet in Edmonton, but you can order online.
Yeah, I'll put the link in the comment section of the video where you can get one off the store there. Yeah.
The one that we have at the office, Miranda, did that come from there? I think so, eh? Or was it not Guardian?
It's possibly from Amazon. They have some on there as well. Yeah. Okay. A few places you can get them online.
Yeah, where it has the date, the time. Yeah.
Right, because that is often one of the questions that seems to be quite repetitive for people living with dementia. What's the date? What's the time?
Yeah, for sure. One thing that we didn't talk about before and has just come to mind is more in terms of repetitive behavior. So that tapping, I've seen it, or the vocalization, or saying the same words over and over, or a clicking. Again, all those things to watch for that we talked about earlier, and discomfort, pain, anxiety, medication, infection, all those things because we often say to caregivers what has changed, right?
Yeah.
Not just assuming that it's a normal progression to the disease when something has changed. So that's important. But sometimes that can be self-soothing for the person's anxiety as well, right? That
Yes.
instead of tapping or clicking or.
Yeah. I had a caregiver tell me last week actually that her husband repeats things, and he was able to vocalize that that is his way of remembering. So he says the same phrase over and over again as a coping mechanism to try and remember important information.
Good point. So he does that so it'll go into long-term memory, like we would if we were studying something. That's interesting. Yeah,
right.
Good point.
I've actually never heard that before, so it was really great that that particular person was able to communicate exactly why that was happening.
Yeah, for sure. I know we say, even in the kitchen, if it's the constant, where are the bowls, where are the bowls, where are the bowls? So labeling things can help as well.
Visual cues, yeah.
Yeah. Putting on cupboards, bowls, cups, silverware, in drawer, those kind of things can help.
And allow the person to maintain independence. Yeah.
Which is so important.
Absolutely. So we're almost at 20 minutes here, Cindy, but before we wrap things up, there's one really important point that I'd like to state. And that is that as long as your person's safe, if you've ruled out all the medical causes, it's okay to not answer a question. If your person has asked a question on repeat all day and you are at the point where you can't answer, even a short, quick answer you can't do, it's okay to not answer. What I would suggest though is that that feeling still needs to be validated, right? So
yeah,
maybe it's, honey, I can see this is important to you. I just need to do the laundry, take a bath, and we'll talk about this later.
Yeah. Just really quickly, there's no concept of time as the disease progresses. So I know I've had a family member who did that as well. And I was at the end of my rope and I just said, I'll be right back.
Yeah.
And I went and had a bath.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. And I did get a knock on the door. What are you doing? I'll be right out. But it just, it allowed me not to respond in a negative way. So I really like that, Miranda. That's a good suggestion.
Yeah. Leaving the room is almost always better than arguing.
Yeah.
Right? So being really self-aware of your own emotions as a caregiver and what you're willing and able to do at each moment of the day. And know that it's okay. You have permission. If your person is safe, you can leave the room. You don't have to answer questions on repeat all day.
Don't ignore,
hear that tapping noise all day.
Right. Don't ignore, connect, and then disconnect. Right? Good question.
Yes, that's great.
And leave. Yeah. So connect first, because that can escalate. You don't listen to me, and so connect before.
And just being aware of your own emotions, right? And if maybe you don't live with your person, but you know that the conversation is going to be 45 minutes about the weather, and you just can't do that. That's probably not an appropriate day to call, right? To have that conversation.
Yeah. So
it looks like it's time to leave.
Yes. Again, we're sorry it wasn't live. This will be a recording uploaded, but we will do our very best to respond to any questions that you may have. And don't forget, we also have a chat option as well at the Alzheimer's Society. Check out our website.
a live chat function where you can speak to one of our social workers live, which of course may be easier if your person's nearby or you're doing other things at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but please like and share this video so that it can reach and hopefully help more people living with dementia or caring for somebody living with dementia. And
stay tuned for next week. I'm really excited about next week because we're going to talk about COVID-19 and the impact on caregivers. So I'm really hoping we're live there because I really want to hear what people are experiencing. So fingers crossed, technology works.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to connecting with you all again next week.
Take care. Bye-bye.